Hello, my name is Seamus Bellew, and this short video is an introductory one for first year science and electronics students at Dundalk Institute of Technology. We hope you find this informative and perhaps it may clarify one or 2 points from your school days. So if we start with a simple example, so we're looking at the order of precedence, 3 plus 2 times 6. So on the first day in class, when we ask the students this question, the room usually divides into two. So half the students give 30 as the answer, and the other half give about 15. So which is it? We could go 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 times 6 is 30. Or we could go 3 plus 2 times 6. 3 plus 12 is 15. Likewise, with this question, 12 times 2 divided by 4 times 2. And again, there are two typical answers that arise. We could do 12 times 2 is 24, divided by 8, which is 3. Or we could do 12 times 2 is 24, divided by 4, which is 6 times 2, which is equal to 12. And again, which is it? So our theme is the order of precedence. This is a bit like the rules of the road. When you start to learn to drive, you study the rules and then you take your theory test. So the question is, which side of the road do we drive on? Does it matter? So in one sense, it doesn't. What matters is that everyone agrees to drive on the same side of the road. In Sweden, on the night of the 3rd of September 1967, there's Stockholm, the capital, they decided they want to change the side on which they drove. So they changed from left to right. Again, the important thing is that everybody agrees to do the same thing. And the law of the land usually ensures that we do this. So likewise in mathematics, we use the order of precedence, or the rules of precedence. So most of you are familiar with these from your school days. You usually do brackets first, then you do powers, so BO. You multiply, multiply, divide, add and subtract. So you would have learned these in school. And there are rhymes that the Irish students often come across. So we like to joke sometimes, do you go to a BOMDAS school or do you go to a BODMAS school or BEMDAS? These are all rhymes to help us remember the order of precedence. So BOMDAS would be brackets, powers, so O stands out there, so O stands for power, multiply, divide, add, subtract, and same there. I there in that one in BEMDAS stands for the indice or the power. Now sometimes there's a little confusion with these. Does multiply come before divide, or does divide come before multiply? We'll clarify that as we go on. So the first thing is brackets are easy. So in these two examples, in the first example we have 3 plus 2 in a bracket is 5 times 6 is 30. So no problem with that. The next one, 3 plus, and inside a bracket 2 times 6, 3 plus 12 is 15. So the bracket usually guides us as to what we do. So when you see brackets, just work out what's inside the bracket first and then carry on with that. So back to our question, 3 plus 2 times 6. So using any of the rhymes that you mentioned in school, and most people probably know anyways, that multiplication is done before addition. So multiply comes before add. So in all those rhymes, multiply comes before add. So basically 2 times 6 will be 12 and 3 plus 12. So that's how that one will get done. So just to write up the detail on that. So it's 3 plus, and we do 2 times 6 first. 2 times 6 is 12. 3 plus 12 is equal to 15. So without that bracket, when you see 3 plus 2 times 6, you do the 2 times 6 first, that's 12. 3 plus 12 is 15. Now, if you take your calculator, you don't have to worry about the rules of precedence. If you just key into your calculator the equation or the question just as you see it, the calculator will give you the correct answer. So if you key in 3 plus 2 times 6, the calculator will give you 15. Likewise for the next question. 12 times 2 divided by 4 times 2. You get your calculator out and just key it all in. 12 times 2 divided by 4 times 2, and the calculator gives us back 12. But it would be nice to be able to work out the answer in our heads as well. So again, back to our rules. Now, do you remember we said earlier on there's a wee point of clarification? Is it multiply before divide, or is it divide before multiply? So sometimes students often mix up these rhymes. So if you're a bomb desk person, it doesn't mean multiply before divide. In a sense, it's brackets first, then the powers, and then it's multiplication and divisions before you do adds and subtracts. But it's a bit like a football league. Multiply and divides are in the same tier. Likewise, addition and subtraction are in the same tier. So the tier of multiply and divide happens before adds and subtracts. But if you're in the tier of multiply and divide, you basically, when it's just multiply or divide, you perform the operations in the order in which they appear in. So multiply and divide, you do them in the order that they appear in, not multiply before divide, or not add before subtract. You do them in the order that they appear in. So in this question here we have 12 times 2 divided by 4 times 2. So 12 times 2 divided by 4 times 2. So if we do them in the order that they appear in, 12 times 2 is 24 divided by 4 times 2. Then we do 24 divided by 4. That's going to give us 6. So 6 times 2, and 6 times 2 is 12. So that's how we get our answer. We just perform the operations in the order in which they appear in. We do 12 times 2 first, gives 24. Then we divide by the 4, that gives us 6. And then we multiply by 2, and that gives us 12. Now, later on in the course, we're going to come back to some fraction calculations. And sometimes when we're dealing with fractions, the order of precedence comes into that. In particular, the quadratic formula. You probably all remember the quadratic formula from your school days. Now today we won't be looking at the quadratic formula, but just a little revision on fractions. 3 over 2 is equal to 1.5, or 1.5. Effectively, that line there in the fraction means 3 divided by 2. So if you had 3 pizzas and you divided by 2 people, each person would end up with 1.5 pizza. So 3 divided by 2 is equal to 1.5. That's just a little recap on fractions. Now, what would happen if we asked you to work out 6 plus 3 over 2? Well, one way to look at this is to get your fraction button on the calculator and key in 6 plus 3 over 2. And we all know that 6 and 3 is 9. 9 over 2 is equal to 4.5. So 4.5 is our answer. Now, again, if you come back and look at this here, 6 plus 3 over 2, is it correct to say 6 plus 3 divided by 2? And again, here's our rules here, the rhymes that we learned in school. So according to that, we would do the divide bit first, and then we would do the add. So what happens if we do that? Well, we will get 6 plus 3 divided by 2. We do the division bit first, because divide happens before add. So we get 6 plus 1.5 equals 7.5. But we already know that the answer to this question is 4.5. So that's the point we're illustrating here. You just need to be a little bit careful with fractions and the order of precedence. However, if you want to get it correct, if you want to do 6 plus 3 over 2, basically if you put all that inside a bracket, all the top bit, the numerator bit, 6 plus 3, and we had that 6 plus 3 was 9, so you put that into a bracket, 6 plus 3 divided by 2, 9 divided by 2 gives 4.5. Again, when it comes to fractions, you don't have to particularly worry about those specific points there. If you use the fraction button on your calculator, if you key in what's on the top on the numerator into the numerator part, 6 plus 3, and supposing you had a few things in the bottom in the denominator bit, you would key that in there. So just in this question here, 6 plus 3 over 2 equals 4.5. So without any complications or having to think out too much, if you use the fraction button in your calculator, it'll take the order of precedence into account and you'll always get the correct answer. So here's 2 questions for you now to think about. A bit complicated looking. Let's see how we get on at them. If you want to pause the video for the minute and just maybe have a go at them, have a go at them in your calculator, have a go at them just by hand using your head. So on this first question here, we have 3 times 4 divided by 2 times 3 squared divided by 6 times 3 divided by 2. If we just key all that into the calculator, we get out the answer 13.5. It might be nice to be able to calculate it by hand using paper and pen. So remember our BOM-DAS rule or our BOD-MAS or BEM-DAS, they all say that we do the power bit before we do adds, subtracts, multiplies or divides. So this question here mainly multiplies and divides. So that power bit there is 3 squared. So that's the first bit that we do. And we know that 3 squared is 3 3s are 9. So that's 9. So that's the first thing that we have. So effectively then it's just divides and multiplies. And they're on the same tier and we take them in the order that they appear in. So following on then, we go 12 divided by 2, which is 6, times 9 that we've already decided, divided by 6 times 3, divided by 2. 6 times 9 is 54, taking them in the order that they come in, divided by 6 times 3, divided by 2. In the next slide we'll go 54 divided by 6 will give us 9. That's sort of a coincidence, or it's just a roundabout. So 54 divided by 6 is 9 times 3 divided by 2. 9 times 3, 27 divided by 2. 27 divided by 2 is 13.5. And then the second question, mixture of divides, pluses, multiplies, minuses. And there's also a couple of indices there. So we just need to be a tiny bit careful here. So our BOM-DAS rule tells us that we do powers first. So effectively we would make 16 out of that before we do anything else. And we would make 8 out of the 2 cubed. So 16 from the 4 squared and 8 from the 2 cubed. 4 squared, 4 fours are 16. 2 cubed, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Or rather, I should have just, before I describe the thing about the powers, if we just key it all into the calculator, and you get out 18.25. But let's have a go at doing it manually now. So it's divides and multiplies and powers before we do adds and subtracts. So the adds and subtracts remain to the end. So effectively you could view a bracket around 36 divided by 9, and then another bracket around 3 divided by 2 times 16, picked on the power bit there, minus 10 plus another bracket 2 divided by 2 cubed, which is 8. So we have 36 divided by 9, that's going to become 4. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5, 1.5. 1.5 multiplied by 16 will become 24. We'll see that now in a minute. Minus 10 plus 2 divided by 8. That's 2 divided by 8. That's the same as 1 divided by 4, the same as a quarter. Or if you just do it in the calculator, 2 divided by 8 is 0.25 or a quarter. So we have 4 plus 24 minus 10 plus 0.25. And finally, here we have a mixture of pluses and minuses. So again, which comes first? These are in the same division. They're on the same tier in the BOM-DAS rule and in the other rules. So it's not necessarily pluses before minuses. We do them in the order that they appear in. So 4 plus 24 is 28. 28 take 10 gives us 18 plus 0.25, and that's 18.25. Sometimes students might see this here, and because they learned some rhyme about they have the A before the subtract BOM-DAS, they might be tempted to go 4 and 24 is 28. Take away 10.25. That would give you a different answer. But what we have done is 4 plus 24 is 28. Take away 10 gives us 18 plus 0.25, and that's 18.25. So we hope you have enjoyed this video, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.